you said a lot of the complexity comes down to the way we've integrated with billing systems early on. What is the relationship between the actual product and application code and the billing system typically early on based on what you've seen?
Yeah, so I think early on, a simple but kind of inflexible pattern is having your application know kind of the billing state of the customer. So having, in the simplest case, just a field on the organization or the user that says, in trial, subscribed or canceled, and then making decisions based off of that. So it's coupled really closely with kind of the state of the billing system. And that causes issues when you go to change things. But even early on, it causes issues, if you have, I feel like early on, there's always the special case customer of like nobody else gets invoiced, but you have, customer ABC that is going to pay you by wire 2 weeks after the fact, and you need to handle that case. In that architecture of having the user state be coupled directly to billing, it's hard to handle that. You end up having to do a bunch of like manual support things, or having a developer change values in the database to make that work. So a more flexible version of that's not really that much more work, is having the billing and the application be decoupled just with the idea of like features or entitlement. So instead of saying, hey, this organization is subscribed, they're in a good state, you can just have a service that you give the organization ID and say, hey, they want to send a message. Have they paid for that feature, or are they allowed to? Or, that logic's kind of abstracted away. So you just have organization ID, name of the feature, and then true or false. Your application then can decide, do we show different things in the UI? Do we have different API endpoints available? Whatever it is, based off of that. But it's not tied directly to billing cycles or any of the kind of complexity there. That all can kind of get abstracted away. So having that idea of feature entitlements, like what are they allowed to do, lets you change over time, like, hey, these 5 features are being added into that plan. So now suddenly they get access to it. You're not changing any code in the application. It's just the response that comes back from that one service. So that makes things much more flexible. Even in those cases where you're having to do one-off things, you're hiding that behind that kind of feature service.
So just to play it back, early on, many companies make the mistake of effectively hard coding business logic from the billing system into their application code. You could avoid that if you simply just built an entitlement service that sat between your application and the billing system and decoupled the business logic from the code.
Yeah. And for a very early stage startup, that might mean that there's manual invoicing going on behind the scenes and you're just flipping the switches per user of, what they're allowed to do. But that still, it gives you a lot of flexibility there as to changing really quickly your pricing model, and being able to iterate on it. And then down the road, it opens the door to the pricing and packaging that's inevitably going to change because of your growth.